back December 2006, because by that time I actually got laid off. The union had renegotiated contracts. The stars had lined up to where it was time for me to come back as well. And I was actually looking forward to it because, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Louisiana, and just being around your family, it's different, than being all by yourself so far away.
Of course.
So that's when I came back, was late 2006, and I've been here ever since.
And then did you kind of turn your back on your music and then go to college? Were you trying to major in music at all? What did you do?
No. Well, when I came back, I worked a little bit because I paid my whole way through college. So I took months off, like semesters off to go to school and build up money and be able to pay for it. So when I came back, I went back to working and then was able to build up a good little nest egg in order to go back to school. And it's funny I call it nest egg. I just want to say that. But which
college did you attend?
Oh, I went to Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond, Louisiana.
And what did you major in?
Well, I majored in mass communication with an emphasis in journalism, which I've always been more of a writer. I've always been somebody who's just in my spare time write, whether it be poetry or just about political topics or short stories, things like that. So I thought I'm going to go into a major in which my talents will aid me. And then it wasn't really until I was in that I realized that mass communications is one of those degrees you get when you don't know what else you want to do, and then everybody else pretty much has that degree. So along the way, I thought, well, I'll try to get into filmmaking, video editing, that sort of thing. And so I got a job at the student channel at the Southeastern, and I was helping make short films and writing for some of the programming they had on the channel, editing. I mean, I had edited so many lectures and learned a lot while I was there, so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to transition away from being a journalist and a writer for, the media, so to speak, and then took that approach. And then it wasn't until not long before I graduated that I realized that there's really not a whole lot of money in that. So unless you wanted to go to like Full Sail University or, I just didn't want to be a grunt for the local news station. So needless to say, I didn't pursue that career, but it's always nice to have a degree, I guess.
Well, you graduated. What did you do with that degree? Anything come from that?
Not that degree in particular. The thing is it's kind of like once you graduate and you get a degree, I'll actually allow you to get interviews, because it's, even if you're not even going into that industry, they're like, well, at least you graduated. So that's kind of what my degree ended up being, was a way for me to at least meet with other people, and because they see communications degree and they might think, oh, maybe he's a good speaker, maybe he's a good writer, maybe his interpersonal communication skills were good. And given my previous experience with customer service, it really aided me in working more in an office setting. And after I graduated college, I looked for a job in which I was working in video editing, and I remember a guy had offered me like $23,000 a year, and that was working during hurricanes, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. So it's like, I'll just go back to trying to be an office guy and then use my spare time to figure out what I really want to do. So I tell people now that working where I work is my part-time job, but music is my full-time job. But that's more of just a silly thing to say.
We don't know what's on the horizon, though. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I think now I'm definitely more dedicated to making and pursuing music, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've always played guitar, but I never took seriously being in a band, even though it's always something I've wanted to do. I've always wanted to create with other people, and that's something that didn't really come to fruition until the summer of last year. Really, maybe we can get into that later. But I guess being a creative person who shares their creativity with other people didn't come until a lot later. I've always been creative and artistic to myself, but never wanted to really put it on display.
So you really weren't seeking out other artists? You just kind of, it was something that you just did for yourself?
Yeah, essentially. I guess because, growing up where your dad was like this fantastic artist and never really pursued it because he didn't really see what he could use. I've kind of, I guess, probably picked up that same, I can play guitar okay, and I can draw okay, and I can write okay, but I don't know if anybody else really cares. And then you get to a point where, maybe you just like, well, I need to take a shot, Maybe there are people who kind of do care or might care, and, sometimes you're not. It's later, you're a little older when you start to figure that part out.
So usually it seems like it's age that we figure out, what? I've held back on this. I don't know why people hold back, feeling like they have to be holding themselves back and not pushing forward. Do you think it's just they're not good enough, or they like,
right?
Maybe both of you can answer that one.
Well, I mean, it's when it moves from being a hobby to being when you realize it's more of a passion, Or, I mean, that word gets thrown around a lot, but it's kind of the right word for that feeling when you're like, I really do want to like do this, not just in my room, but for other people.
Well, and too, I think for me in particular, it's kind of like what conveys who I am as Joram. Like, is it really sitting at a desk answering phones, or is it writing and creating and saying this is me and this is what I'm able to put forth for other people to consume and then give me feedback? And I think that just kind of, maybe that part of it doesn't come till later. And two, it's like, and I might say this sounding like, I'm in my 50s or 60s, but I've gotten to an age where it's like my confidence isn't so low. I've kind of have a completely different reevaluation, even the concept of self-confidence and that sort of thing. So growing up, I had very little exposure to women and people. So it's like I had to really build up to get to this position in which I was like, I don't mind being vulnerable in front of other people. And that's not just audiences to consume whatever I might have, but other people who are co-creators who also can critique my ideas and say, this is terrible or this is great. It takes I guess it just took me time to get to that point.
Well, I think too, in your 20s and 30s, you're looking for that criticism a little bit more. I mean, some people, maybe not everybody, but I like the feedback. Whereas when I was 16 and 17, I was afraid of feedback.
Right.
So my outlook as a musician, as a creator, is a lot different now. Where I starve for that. I want people to tell me what they thought about it. Not even just if it's good, just to be able to share that. Like working with you on the film, that was so exciting. Every time I get an email, I just wanted to know like what you thought about it and how it fit and how our visions work together. So I love that now. And
when I finally heard a piece of music from you, I'm like, wow. Like I stated in the other interview, I wasn't expecting a piano. I had this one thing in my mind. I kind of thought this ethereal music, and then when you did the piano, like, wait a second, that does work. So where do you go from there?
Well, I think at one point I was listening to music on my own, playing guitar and stuff, and I was like, you know what, it's too much fun to not enjoy with other people. I got to figure out a way to be in a band. And if I stink and if it doesn't work out, then at least I could say, hey, I gave it a shot. I'm not going to go to my grave being like, oh, I never tried. So I came up with the brilliant idea to put an ad on Craigslist.
Novel.
Yes, exactly.
Unheard of.
I knew I would only get the best of the best. And,
when was this that you put out?
This was actually probably June, maybe May of last year, of 2018. And I was like, I'm ready for my spare time to be used in ways that are productive.
And maybe want to reword that if you're putting it on Craigslist. I'm ready to be used in my spare time.
Right, exactly. Thankfully, my Craigslist was worded in which I thought I could weed out a lot of people who didn't understand what I was going for.
You were using that journalism degree.
To it.
Right. See?
I had link after link after link to music videos of songs and bands that I would like to emulate, or at least be in that realm of style of music.
Which is?
And, well, at the time it was I would say psychedelic rock, but not. I guess I would say like a Pink Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
Cars, Beatles. Kind of where you just have guys that have a particular leaning. And I tend to like psychedelic music and just kind of like chill music. And I was really asking, like, I can sing, I can play a little bit of guitar. I'm looking for people who want to just jam. Let's get together and just have fun and then see where it goes. And within a day, I started getting messages. And the first one that seemed somewhat promising was from a guy named Mike, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm in a band. We just lost our singer, and we have me as the guitar player, we have a drummer, and we have a bass player, and we need a singer." And he asked for me to submit some recordings of something, of some songs that they cover, and I sent him some things, and he was like, "Yeah man, this sounds really good. Would you like to meet up and practice with us?" And I was like, "Oh sure, that sounds great." So, and that was kind of nerve-wracking in a sense, because I'm like, what if I go there and they hack me to pieces? It's just Craigslist. So I met him one Saturday morning, and we practiced together, and it was a lot of fun. It was mostly these two guys. It was this guy named Mike and this guy named Chase. Real nice guys. And it was fun, especially the first day, because I was like, man, I've never done this before, and it's nice to just kind of get it out of your system and feel like you're moving in a direction. But after a few weeks, it got to the point where it was like, I know that I said I just wanted to jam,
right?
But I would like to get better. I don't want to just play music just to be loud and aggressive and get things out of our system. I'd like to really try to create and to, put together something that's appealing for other people. And
did you feel like they didn't have a vision?
Yeah, basically. I didn't feel like there was much of a vision other than, and this is going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but they seemed to really think that I had a very, very good voice. And they would talk about me like I was their ticket out of there, And I was like, I'm not saying I have a bad voice, but when I'm looked at as like the savior without any experience, I'm like, I don't know how I should do it.
It's going back to Jesus, That's what
yeah, right, exactly. Yes, it just at full circle. And so we had a couple of practices where our bassist didn't show up. Like, he wouldn't say anything. So it got to the point where they were like, look, we got to let the guy go. And I said, there was an email that I got shortly after y'all contacted me. A guy named Erik said he and his brother have experience playing in bands, and he said he plays bass and his brother plays drums. And when I said that, one of the guys, it seemed like it kind of perked him up, because he probably thought, I could move to something else. Instead of playing drums, I could, maybe move to bass. So they were like, yeah, go ahead and give them a call and then see what they say, or email, see what they say. So I said, sure. So I responded to the email, and that was Erik and his brother Tyler, our drummer, saying, hey, if y'all are still interested, I know it's been a couple months. Sorry it's taken so long. I know Erik was waiting every day. He would just wait. Did I get an email back? No.
Well, being Craigslist, like, for a while, I was like real excited about it, and then it was like, well, it's just another thing. It just didn't pan out,
Right.
So I was really surprised months later when I heard back from you. I called Tyler immediately. I was like, hey, remember like months ago when I emailed that guy about the psychedelic rock band? I was like, he got back to me.
Yeah, because it was probably late July, early August by the time I responded.
I kind of forgot about it.
I was like, sorry, Erik, you're like my 10th choice.
You're way down the list.
No, not really. You're actually the first one that I contacted about playing bass. And the funny thing is that when Erik and Tyler showed up, I immediately felt like just how, like, you might feel like you have a pretty good sense of character. That's how I felt like when I met Erik and Tyler. Like, they reminded me how they were, but me and my brothers. And I automatically just kind of had a really good vibe. And once they started to play, immediately I could tell the difference